I was setting the table for Sunday dinner when my son Marcus called out from the hallway. "Mom, Dad, we're here. I want you to meet someone very special." My hands were full of plates, my heart was full of hope, and I had absolutely no idea that the next 60 seconds would shatter 43 years of my life into a million pieces, because when that woman walked through my dining room door, when I saw her face, when our eyes met across that table I had so carefully set with my grandmother's china, I felt the floor disappear beneath me. It wasn't just any woman. It was Sarah Mitchell, my college roommate, my maid of honor, my best friend for 20 years, the woman who vanished from my life without explanation 15 years ago, and now here she was, holding my son's hand, wearing an engagement ring, smiling at me as if we were strangers meeting for the first time. "Mom, this is Rebecca." Marcus said, his voice bright with happiness. "Rebecca, this is my mother Catherine and my father Tom." Rebecca, she was calling herself Rebecca. Now Sarah looked me dead in the eyes, her smile never faltering, and said in that same voice, I had heard 1,000 times, "It's so wonderful to meet you both. Marcus has told me so much about you." My throat closed. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't speak. Tom was shaking her hand, saying something about how lovely it was to meet her. But all I could hear was the rushing sound of my own blood in my ears, because Sarah knew exactly who I was, and she was pretending she didn't. The question wasn't just, why was she here? The question was, what kind of game was she playing with my son's heart? And more importantly, what was I going to do about it? My name is Catherine Whitmore. I'm 62 years old, and until that moment, I thought I had seen every possible betrayal life could throw at a person. I was wrong. So wrong. Let me take you back, because you need to understand who Sarah was to me, who she really was. Before I tell you what I discovered she was capable of. We met in 1979 at Boston University. Both of us were 18. Both of us were from small towns. Both of us were terrified of this big city and this big campus. On the first day of orientation, I was trying to find the administrative building with a map that made absolutely no sense when this girl with wild red curly hair and freckles across her nose tapped me on the shoulder. "You look as lost as I feel," she said. "Want to be lost together?" That was Sarah Mitchell, and from that moment we were inseparable. We shared everything. Clothes, secrets, dreams, fears. We studied together every night in our tiny dorm room. We went to terrible college parties together. We held each other's hair back when we drank too much cheap wine. We cried together over failed exams and failed relationships. When I met Tom in our junior year, Sarah was the first person I told when. Tom proposed senior year. I asked Sarah to be my maid of honor without hesitation. She stood next to me at my wedding in that pale pink dress we picked out together. She gave a toast that made everyone cry. She was the sister I never had, the friend I thought I would have forever. After college, we stayed close, even when life pulled us in different directions. I moved to Philadelphia with Tom's Sarah, stayed in Boston, working at an advertising agency. We called each other every week, we visited each other every few months. When I had Marcus, she was there at the hospital 3 hours after he was born, holding him with tears streaming down her face. "He's perfect, Kathy," she whispered. "You made a perfect human." She was Aunt Sarah to Marcus. She came to his birthday parties. She sent him cards and presents. She was family, real family. Not the kind you're born with, but the kind you choose. And then one day, in 2008, 15 years ago, she just disappeared. I called her phone. Disconnected. I sent emails. They bounced back. I drove to Boston to her apartment. The landlord said she had moved out, suddenly paid 3 months' rent to break the lease, and left no forwarding address. I contacted her parents. They said they hadn't heard from her either, that she had told them she needed space and time, and that she would reach out when she was ready. I contacted her workplace. They said she had resigned, effective. Immediately, I filed a missing person report. The police found her alive and well in another state, and said that as an adult, she had every right to disappear if she wanted to. For months I was sick with worry. Then worried turned to hurt. Then hurt turned to anger. How could someone who claimed to love you just vanish without explanation? Without goodbye, without anything 15 years, I spent wondering what I had done wrong, wondering if she was okay, wondering if she was even alive. And now here she was in my dining room, holding my son's hand, calling herself Rebecca. Dinner that night was the longest 2 hours of my life. I sat there mechanically putting food in my mouth, mechanically nodding and smiling, while Marcus talked excitedly about how he had met Rebecca at a medical conference 6 months ago. He's a pediatrician, my son following in his father's footsteps. Tom is a cardiologist, and apparently Sarah was working as a pharmaceutical sales representative. Rebecca has this amazing ability to connect with doctors, Marcus was saying, his eyes shining, as he looked at her. She's not just selling products, she genuinely cares about patient outcomes. I watched her blush, modestly, watched her place her hand on his arm, watched her play the role of the perfect girlfriend, and I wanted to scream instead. I said, "Rebecca, that's such a lovely name. Is it a family name?" I watched her closely. Our eyes met for just a fraction of a second, and I saw it a flicker of something, fear maybe, or recognition. "Yes," she said smoothly. "I was named after my grandmother." Liar. I thought Sarah Mitchell had no grandmother named Rebecca. I had met all her grandmothers. "How did your family end up in Chicago, Rebecca?" Tom asked. "Marcus mentioned you grew up there." "Yes, the suburbs, actually," she replied. "Pretty standard. Midwestern upbringing, nothing too exciting." Another lie. Sarah had grown up in Vermont, in a small town called Woodstock. I had visited her there. I had met her parents. I had seen her childhood bedroom. How was she sitting here rewriting her entire history? "Do you have siblings?" I asked, my voice steady, even though my hands were shaking under the table. "Just me," she said. "Only child, strike 3. Sarah had a younger brother named David. I had met him multiple times. He had come to our wedding. "Mom, are you okay?" Marcus asked, looking at me with concern. "You've barely touched your food." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I lied. "Just a headache coming on, I think." "We can go if you're not feeling well," he said immediately. Always so thoughtful, my boy. No, I said quickly, because I needed more time. I needed to understand what was happening. "I'm fine. Really, tell me more about how you two met." I listened to their story, and it sounded genuine. She had approached him at a booth during a pediatric conference in Atlanta. They had talked for hours, gone to dinner that night, and had been together ever since 6 months. They had been dating for 6 months, and this was the first time he was bringing her home to meet us, which meant this was serious, which meant my son was in love with a woman who was lying about everything. "When did you know you wanted to marry her?" Tom asked Marcus, and my son's face just lit up. "Honestly, Dad, probably within the first month," he said. "I know that sounds crazy. But when you know she's everything I've been looking for." Sarah reached over and kissed his cheek, and I watched my 28-year-old son look at this 43-year-old woman, 15 years older than him, by the way, though she was clearly passing herself off as younger. And I realized with growing horror that he had no idea who she really was, no idea that she was lying, no idea that the woman he wanted to marry was someone who had once been his mother's best friend. How could she do this? How could she look at my son, see my face in his features, hear my maiden name that he shares as his middle name, Catherine Marcus Whitmore, and not say something, not stop this before it went too far, unless that was exactly the point? After dinner, Marcus went to get their coats, and for the first time, Sarah and I were alone in the dining room, just for 30 seconds. But it was enough. "I know who you are," I said quietly, my voice shaking with rage. "Sarah Mitchell, I don't know what game you're playing, but I know exactly who you are." She turned to me, and her face was completely calm, completely composed. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice equally quiet. "My name is Rebecca Stone." "Why are you doing this?" I whispered. "What do you want?" "I want to marry your son," she said simply. "And you're going to let me? Like hell I am." "Think carefully, Catherine," she said. And hearing my name from her lips after 15 years made me feel sick. "If you tell Marcus who I am, you'll have to explain why I disappeared. You'll have to explain that you have no idea why your best friend of 20 years cut you out of her life completely. What will he think? What will he wonder about his perfect mother?" "You're insane," I breathed. "No," she said calmly. "I'm in love and I'm not going to let you ruin this." Marcus came back into the room with their coats, and Sarah's face transformed instantly back to that sweet, adoring girlfriend smile. "Thank you for a wonderful dinner," she said to me. "I hope we can do this again soon." I stood there frozen as my son hugged me goodbye, as he told me how happy he was as he walked out my door with the woman who was systematically destroying everything I held dear. The moment the door closed, I collapsed. Tom caught me. "Kathy, what's wrong?" he asked, alarmed. "What happened?" And I told him everything about Sarah, about the lies, about the confrontation in the dining room. Tom stared at me in disbelief. "Sarah, you're—" "Sarah, from college." "Yes." "Are you absolutely certain?" "Tom, I lived with that woman for 4 years. I was in her wedding party. I know her face. I know her voice. I know the way she tilts her head when she's lying. Yes, I'm certain. But why would she do this?" That was the question that kept me up all night. Why, after 15 years of complete silence, would Sarah resurface in the cruelest way possible, dating my son, lying about her identity, threatening me when I confronted her? What had I done to deserve this, what had happened 15 years ago, to make her hate me this much? I went through every memory, every conversation, every moment trying to find the answer, and then at 3 a.m, sitting in my kitchen with cold coffee. I remembered something. It was 2007, the year before Sarah disappeared. Tom and I had been going through a rough patch in our marriage. Nothing catastrophic, just the normal strain of juggling careers and raising a teenager. Tom was working long hours. At the hospital, I was busy with my interior design business. Marcus was 15 and testing every boundary we had set. Sarah had come to visit for a weekend, and I had confided in her about my worries about my marriage, about feeling disconnected. From Tom, she had listened sympathetically, had hugged me, had told me that every marriage goes through difficult periods. But then that visit, something had been off. Tom and Sarah had talked a lot more than usual, had laughed together at jokes I didn't understand, had gone for a walk together one evening, while I stayed home with Marcus to help him with homework. I hadn't thought much of it at the time. Tom and Sarah had always gotten along. They were friends in their own right after 20 years of me being friends with her. But now I wondered, had something happened between them? Had Sarah developed feelings for Tom? Had she made a move that he rejected? Was that why she disappeared? And now 15 years later was this. Her revenge was she going to marry my son, to somehow punish me, to get back at me for something that may or may not have happened 15 years ago? The more I thought about that weekend in 2007, the more details came flooding back. Sarah had stayed for 4 days. That time longer than usual, she had seemed different. Somehow, more nervous, more emotional. I remembered walking into my kitchen one afternoon and finding her and Tom deep in conversation that stopped abruptly when I entered the room. I remembered thinking it was odd, but I had trusted them both so completely that I dismissed it as paranoia. Now that dismissal seemed like the biggest mistake of my life. I got up from the kitchen table and went to my office. I kept journals sporadically over the years, and I knew I had written about that visit. I found the journal from 2007 and flipped through the pages until I found the entry dated May 15th, 2007. Sarah left today. I had written, "Something feels off about this visit. She seemed sad, When she hugged me goodbye, almost like she was saying goodbye forever. I asked her if everything was okay, and she said she was just tired from work. I hope that's all it is. Tom has been acting strange too, distant ever since that walk they took. On Saturday, I asked him about it, and he said they just talked about old times, about college, about how much life has changed. I don't know why, but I feel like there's something they're not telling me. I had forgotten about that. Entry had forgotten. Those feelings of unease, life had moved on. The feeling had faded, and then 3 months later, Sarah had vanished. Reading those words now in my own handwriting, from 15 years ago, I felt a chill run down my spine. My instincts had been right. Something had happened during that visit, something significant enough to make Sarah disappear completely from our lives. I needed to talk to Tom, but it was 4 a.m. and he was asleep. I spent the next 2 hours going through old photo albums, finding pictures from that visit. There was Sarah in our kitchen laughing at something off camera. There was Sarah and Tom on the back porch, drinks in hand, looking at something on Tom's phone. There was Sarah hugging Marcus, who at 15 was already taller than her. There was Sarah and me, arms around each other, smiling at the camera, 2 best friends without a care in the world, except one of us had been hiding something that would eventually explode into this nightmare. When Tom came down for his morning coffee at 6, I was still at the kitchen table surrounded by journals and photo albums. "Kathy, did you sleep at all?" he asked, concern in his voice. "I need you to tell me the truth." I said, "About that weekend in 2007. When Sarah visited, what happened between you two?" Tom went very still, his coffee cup halfway to his lips. "What do you mean?" "Tom, I'm not accusing you of anything, but I need to know what happened on that walk you two took. What did you talk about? What did she say to you?" He sat down across from me, and I could see him debating internally how much to tell me. Finally, he sighed. "She told me she was in love with me," he said quietly. "She said she had been in love with me since college, that seeing me with you all these years had been torture, that she couldn't do it anymore." My heart clenched. Even though I had suspected it, hearing it confirmed was devastating. "What did you say to her?" "I told her I was flattered, but that I loved you, that I had only ever loved you, that she was your best friend, and that this confession was going to make things very awkward for everyone." Tom reached across the table and took my hand. "I told her she needed to take some time away from us, to get over these feelings and maybe see a therapist, because this level of obsession wasn't healthy. And then what happened? She got upset, started crying, said I didn't understand, that no one understood. She said she had wasted her whole life, loving someone who would never love her back. I tried to comfort her, but she pulled away, and we walked back to the house in silence." Tom's eyes were red now. "The next day she left, and I thought that was the end of it. I thought she would take my advice. Get some help, move on. I never imagined she would just disappear." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Why did you keep this secret for 15 years? "Because I didn't want to hurt you," he said. "Sarah was your best friend, your sister in every way that mattered. I knew that if I told you what she had said, you would blame yourself somehow. You would think you had done something wrong, or that you should have seen the signs, and I didn't want you to lose that friendship because of feelings. That weren't your fault or mine." "But I lost the friendship anyway," I said bitterly. "And now she's back and she's trying to take our son." "We won't let that happen," Tom said firmly. "I promise you, Kathy, we will stop this." I called Sarah's parents. The next morning, after 15 years of silence, I called Eleanor and Richard Mitchell. They still lived in Vermont. I had kept their number all these years, hoping someday Sarah would come back. "Eleanor, it's Catherine Whitmore," I said when she answered. "Catherine, oh my God," she breathed. "It's been so long. How are you? I need to talk to you about Sarah." There was a long pause. We haven't heard from Sarah in years, dear. We told you that last time. She's here in Philadelphia, I said. She's dating my son, and she's calling herself Rebecca Stone. Another pause, even longer. That's not possible, Eleanor said. Sarah would never. Eleanor, I need to know what happened 15 years ago. I need to know why she disappeared. I heard her take a shaky breath. We don't know, Catherine. We truly don't. She called us one day and said she needed to start over, that she had made mistakes she couldn't fix, and she needed a clean slate. She wouldn't tell us what happened. She just said she was sorry and that she loved us, but she needed to become someone else. Has she contacted you at all in 15 years? Christmas cards, Eleanor said quietly. No return address, just a card every year letting us know she's alive, and okay, that's all we get. I could hear the pain in Eleanor's voice, the bewilderment of a mother who had lost her daughter not to death, but to choice. Eleanor, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. Did Sarah ever mention having feelings for my husband, for Tom? There was a long silence. She did, Eleanor finally admitted. When she was younger, in her 20s, she told me once that she thought she had married the wrong person, that she had been in love with someone else the whole time. But that person was taken. I asked her who, and she wouldn't say, but I always suspected it was Tom. I saw the way she looked at him at your wedding, the way her face fell when you said your vows. This was too much. Sarah had been in love with Tom since we were in college, since before we were married. She had stood next to me at my wedding, knowing she loved the man I was marrying. She had held that secret for decades, letting it fester and grow until it consumed her. There's more, Eleanor said, hesitantly. About 6 months before she disappeared, Sarah called me in the middle of the night. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. She said she had done something terrible, that she had ruined everything. I asked her what happened. But she wouldn't tell me. She just kept saying over and over that some mistakes can't be undone. Do you have any idea what she meant? No, but David might, Eleanor said. Her brother? You remember David? Of course. David told me a few years ago that Sarah had contacted him once after she disappeared. She called him from a blocked number and talked to him for about an hour. He said she seemed different, like a stranger, but she told him some things he made me promise never to repeat. But given the circumstances, I think you need to talk to him. I called David that afternoon. He was living in Seattle now, working as a software engineer, Catherine Whitmore. He said, when I identified myself, "Wow, that's a name from the past. How are you?" I've been better, David. I need to talk to you about Sarah. I heard him exhale slowly. I wondered when someone would call about that. Your mother said Sarah contacted you a few years ago, that she told you things. Can you tell me what she said? Look, Catherine, this is going to be hard to hear, he warned. I'm ready. Sarah told me that she had been obsessed with your husband for years, that it had started in college and had never gone away. She said that every relationship she had, every man she dated, she compared to Tom, and they all fell short. She said that obsession had destroyed her life, bankrupted her emotionally and financially. David paused. She also told me that she had tried to kiss Tom during a visit to your house, that he had rejected her, and that the humiliation had been too much to bear. She said she couldn't face you anymore, couldn't pretend to be your friend when all she wanted was to be you. My hands were shaking as I held the phone. Did she say anything else? Yes, she said that disappearing wasn't enough, that becoming someone else wasn't enough, that she still thought about Tom every day, about the life she could have had, and then she said something that really scared me. What did she say? She said that someday, somehow, she would find a way to be part of your family, whether you wanted her there or not. She said it was destiny, that you had stolen her destiny, and she was going to take it back. Those words echoed in my mind. She had planned For years, this wasn't a chance meeting at a medical conference. This was calculated, deliberate revenge. David, there's something you need to know. Sarah is here in Philadelphia. She's engaged to my son, Marcus. Jesus Christ, David breathed. Catherine. You have to stop this, my sister. She's not well. She hasn't been well for a long time. Whatever she's planning, it's not going to end well for anyone. I hired a private investigator. His name was Robert Chen, and he came highly recommended by a friend. I gave him everything I knew about Sarah Mitchell, her real name, her date of birth, her social security number, her parents' names, everything. I need to know where she's been for the past 15 years. I told him, I need to know who Rebecca Stone really is, and I need to know how she found my son. This might take a few weeks, he warned me. If she's been using a false identity, there may not be much of a paper trail. I don't care how long it takes, I said. I need answers. While I waited. For Robert's investigation, I did my own digging. I couldn't confront Marcus directly. Not yet, not without proof. But I started asking casual questions about Rebecca. Where exactly in Chicago did she grow up? What high school did she go to? Did she go to college? Marcus was happy to talk about her. He was so in love, it broke my heart. She went to Northwestern, he told me. Marketing degree. She's brilliant. Mom, really? You'd love her if you gave her a chance. I looked up Northwestern's alumni records. There was no Rebecca Stone in the marketing program during the years Sarah would have been in college. What about her family? I asked. Have you met them? Not yet. Marcus admitted. She's estranged from her parents. Unfortunately, some kind of falling out years ago. She doesn't like to talk about it. How convenient, I thought, another layer of lies to prevent anyone from digging into her past. I also started following Sarah or Rebecca on social media. She had accounts under her fake name, carefully curated to show a life that had never existed. Photos of places she claimed to have visited, childhood memories that weren't hers, friends who were likely just acquaintances or completely fabricated. What struck me most was how many photos she had posted with Marcus in just 6 months, dozens of them, everyone carefully composed to show a perfect couple in love. But when I looked closely at her face in these photos, I could see something beneath the smile, something calculating, something triumphant. She was winning whatever game she was playing, and she knew it. I started having nightmares about the wedding that would never happen, dreams where I watched my son marry this woman, watched him say vows to someone who didn't exist, watched Sarah look at me over Marcus's shoulder with victory in her eyes. In one particularly vivid dream, we were at the reception, and Sarah came up to me in her white dress. "Thank you, Catherine," she said, "for introducing me to Tom all those years ago. If I can't have him, at least I can have the next best thing, his son, his legacy, his DNA. It's almost like Tom is mine now, isn't it?" I would wake up from these dreams in a cold sweat, Tom holding me, telling me it was just a nightmare, but we both knew the real nightmare was happening while we were awake. 2 weeks later, Robert called me, "Mrs. Whitmore, I found something you need to see. Can you come to my office?" I drove there immediately, my heart pounding. Robert spread out a series of documents on his desk. "Rebecca Stone is a real person," he said. Or rather, she died in a car accident in 2009 in Ohio. She was 28 years old, single, no children. He showed me the death certificate, the newspaper obituary. Sarah Mitchell obtained Rebecca Stone's birth certificate and Social Security number sometime after her death. He continued, "It's called ghosting, taking on the identity of a deceased person who was roughly the same age. This is what Sarah has been living under for the past 14 years. "How is that even possible?" I asked. "Isn't that illegal?" "Extremely illegal," Robert confirmed. "Identity theft, fraud, probably multiple counts. But it's actually not as hard as you'd think. If you're careful, she's been building Rebecca Stone's credit history working under that name. Paying taxes under that name, as far as the government is concerned, Rebecca Stone came back from the dead in 2009 and has been living a normal life ever since. What else did you find? Sarah Mitchell, the real Sarah, filed for bankruptcy in 2008. He said, sliding another document toward me. She had significant debts, credit cards, medical bills. She lost her apartment, her car, everything. That's probably why she disappeared. She was running from her creditors. Medical bills, I asked, for what? I couldn't find specific details, he admitted. Medical records are private, but there were bills from several hospitals and specialists in the Boston area, all from 2007 and 2008, the year before. She disappeared the year she had visited us that last time. Is there anything else? Yes, Robert said, and his expression became grim. Rebecca Stone. Sarah has been married before under her false identity. She married a man named James Peterson in 2011 in Nevada. They divorced in 2014. She was married. And there's one more thing. Robert pulled out another document. The divorce records indicate there was a restraining order. James Peterson filed one against Rebecca Stone, claiming she had engaged in stalking, harassment, and threatening behavior after he asked for the divorce. I stared at the document spread across Robert's desk. This wasn't just a friend who had made a mistake. This was a woman who had systematically constructed a false identity, who had stolen a dead woman's life, who had a history of unstable behavior, and she was engaged to my son. But wait, I said. There's something else. How did she find Marcus? Was it really random, or did she seek him out? Robert pulled out another folder. That's what took me so long to piece together. Sarah, or Rebecca, has been following your family on social media for years. She had fake accounts, burner accounts that she used to watch you. Tom and Marcus, she knew where Marcus worked, knew about his career path, knew about the conferences he attended. He showed me printouts of these fake accounts profiles with generic names and stock photos that had been liking Marcus's posts, commenting occasionally on his professional updates. She's been planning this for at least 3 years based on the digital trail. Robert continued, the medical conference where they met wasn't random. She signed up for it. Specifically, she arranged to be at his booth at the exact time he would be there. She even paid one of his colleagues to introduce them, make it seem organic. My blood ran cold. So this entire relationship is a lie, every moment of it. Every moment, Robert confirmed. Your son never had a chance. She studied him, learned his interests, his values, what he was looking for in a partner, and she became that person. That night, I called Marcus and asked him to come over alone. Is something wrong, Mom? He asked warily. We need to talk, I said. When I opened the door, I showed him everything. The death certificate for the real Rebecca Stone, the bankruptcy records for Sarah Mitchell, the marriage license, the divorce papers, the restraining order, and most damning of all, the evidence that she had been stalking him online for years, planning their meeting, orchestrating their entire relationship. I watched the color drain from his face as he read through each document. This can't be right, he whispered. There has to be some mistake. Marcus, I know this is hard to hear, but Rebecca is not who she says she is. Her real name is Sarah Mitchell, and she was my best friend in college. No, he said, shaking his head. No, that's impossible. She would have said something. You would have recognized her. I did recognize her, I said gently. The moment she walked through our door, I knew exactly who she was. And when I confronted her, she threatened me. She said if I told you the truth, she would make me regret it. Why would she do this? Marcus asked, his voice breaking. Why would she lie to me about everything? Because she's obsessed with your father, I said, and I told him everything about the confession in 2007, about the unrequited love that had lasted decades, about the plan she had been hatching for years to become part of our family by any means necessary. Marcus sat there in stunned silence as I spoke. I could see his world crumbling around him. The woman he loved didn't exist. She had never existed. She was a carefully constructed fiction designed specifically to trap him. "I need to talk to her," he said finally. "I need to hear this from her." "Marcus, I don't think that's a good idea." "Mom, I need to," he said, and there was a steeliness in his voice I had never heard before. "I need to look her in the eye and ask her why," Marcus confronted her. The next day at her apartment I wasn't there, but he told me later what happened. He walked in with the documents and spread them out on her coffee table. "Tell me these are fake," he said. "Tell me this is all some terrible mistake. Sarah or—" Rebecca looked at the papers and then looked at him, and according to Marcus, her face just crumpled. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't lie to you anymore." She told him everything, or at least her version of everything she said that she had been in love with Tom, my husband, for years, that during that visit in 2007, she had confessed her feelings to him and he had rejected her gently but firmly, had told her that he loved me and only me, that he valued her friendship but could never see her as anything more than his wife's best friend. "I was devastated," she told Marcus. "I felt so humiliated, so rejected. I couldn't face your mother anymore, couldn't pretend everything was fine. So I left, I ran away, I changed my name, I changed my life. I tried to become someone new." "And then you met me," Marcus said, "and you knew exactly who I was, didn't you? You knew I was Catherine's son?" She admitted it. Yes, she had known. She had seen his name tag at the conference. Marcus Whitmore. Catherine. Whitmore's son, and something in her had snapped. Some twisted part of her brain had thought that this was fate, that this was her second chance. "I thought if I could make you love me, if I could become part of your family, then maybe," she trailed. "Off maybe what?" Marcus demanded. "Maybe your father would see what he had missed. Maybe he would regret choosing your mother over me. Maybe I could prove that I was worthy of being loved," but Marcus wasn't having any of it. "So I was, what exactly?" "A consolation prize, a way to get back at my mother, a tool for revenge." "No," she said, reaching for him. "I do love you, Marcus, I really do." "You don't even know me," he said, pulling away. "Everything you know about me, you learned by stalking me online. You manufactured our entire relationship. You became whoever you thought I wanted you to be. How is that love?" "Because I changed for you," she cried. "Because I made myself into the perfect woman for you, isn't that love?" "That's obsession," Marcus said. "That's mental illness, and I want you to get help, but I can't be with you. I can't marry someone who doesn't exist." Marcus came to our house that night, his eyes red from crying. He hugged me for a long time. "I'm so sorry, Mom," he whispered. "I should have listened to you. I should have known something was wrong." "You loved her," I said. "Or you loved who you thought she was. That's not your fault. She's sick. Marcus, she needs help." "I broke off the engagement," he said. "I told her I never want to see her again. I told her if she doesn't leave Philadelphia, I'll report her to the police for identity fraud." "How did she take it?" "She cried," he said. "She begged me not to leave her. She said she would tell me the truth about everything. If I just gave her another chance, but I couldn't. Mom, I just couldn't look at her, knowing that every kiss, every conversation, every moment we shared was based on a lie." I held my son while he cried, and I felt a rage building inside me that I had never experienced before. This woman had hurt my family in the most profound way possible. She had manipulated my son, stolen his heart under false pretenses, and now she expected to just walk away with no consequences? No, I thought not this time. We filed a police report the next day. Sarah Mitchell was arrested for identity theft fraud and violation of her previous restraining order, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted her to face every possible consequence for what she had done. I contacted James Peterson, her ex-husband, through his lawyer. "Mr. Peterson, my name is Catherine Whitmore. I'm reaching out because I believe you are married to a woman calling herself Rebecca Stone. Her real name is Sarah Mitchell, and she recently tried to marry my son under this false identity." James agreed to talk to me over the phone. "I'm not surprised," he said when I explained the situation. "Rebecca or Sarah was very good at being whoever she thought you wanted her to be when we met. She was perfect, literally perfect. She liked everything. I had all the same values, wanted the same things out of life. I thought I had found my soulmate." What happened? About a year into our marriage, I started noticing inconsistencies in her stories, he said. Little things at first, like she would tell me about her childhood, and the details would change, or I would ask about her family, and she would get defensive. Eventually, I hired a private investigator and found out that Rebecca Stone was a dead woman, that my wife had stolen her identity. "Why didn't you go to the police immediately?" "Because I loved her," he admitted. "Or I loved who I thought she was. I confronted her, and she broke down, confessed everything told me about Sarah Mitchell, about the bankruptcy, about running away from her old life. She begged me to give her a chance to start over for real this time as herself. But it didn't work. No, because Sarah Mitchell wasn't a real person either," he said. "Or rather, the Sarah she showed me was just another version of the perfect woman character she had been playing her whole life. I realized she didn't actually have a personality of her own. She was just a mirror reflecting back what she thought people wanted to see." "When did you ask for the divorce?" "When I found out she had been lying about taking her medication," he said. "She had told me she was on antidepressants for depression, but I found out she had actually been prescribed antipsychotics. For something much more serious, she had been diagnosed with erotomania." "What's that?" "It's a delusional disorder," he explained. "People with erotomania believe that someone, usually someone of higher social status, is in love with them, no matter how much evidence there is to the contrary. They maintain this delusion, and sometimes they become dangerous." My blood ran cold. "Who was she delusional about?" "She never told me, but based on what you've just said about your husband, I think I can guess," James said. "After I asked for the divorce, she became obsessed with the idea that I secretly loved her, that I was just confused, that if she could just make me see the truth, we would be together again. She started showing up at my work, at my parents' house. She would send me hundreds of texts a day. When I blocked her number, she would create new ones. That's when I had to get the restraining order." "Did it work?" "Eventually, but it took months and several violations before she finally disappeared again." He paused. "Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to understand something. Sarah is very sick, and when people with erotomania don't get treatment, they can become violent. If your son has broken off the engagement, you need to protect him. She's not going to let this go easily." His words terrified me, but they also galvanized me into action. I called Robert Chen again. "I need you to find out everything about Sarah's medical history. I need documentation of her mental illness for the criminal case. I'll do what I can, but medical records are heavily protected." "Try," I said, "please." I also called a lawyer, not just any lawyer, but one who specialized in stalking and harassment cases. "I want to make sure Sarah Mitchell faces the maximum possible consequences for what she's done," I told her, "and I want a restraining order, not just for Marcus, but for our entire family." The lawyer, whose name was Jennifer Morrison, reviewed all the evidence. "This is actually a very strong case," she said. "Identity theft, fraud, stalking, harassment, violating a previous restraining order. She's looking at serious prison time if convicted." "Good," I said, and I meant it. Some people might think I was being vindictive, that I should feel sorry for Sarah given her mental illness, but those people hadn't watched their son's heartbreak, hadn't seen the devastation in his eyes when he realized the woman he loved had never existed, hadn't spent sleepless nights wondering what else Sarah might do. And then it got worse. 2 weeks after Marcus broke off the engagement, I was at home alone. Tom was at the hospital, Marcus was at work, and I was in my office going through some design proposals for a client when I heard a key turning in my front. My blood turned to ice, because I knew Tom and Marcus both had keys, but they would have called first, would have let me know they were coming. I grabbed my phone ready to dial 911 and crept toward the front hallway. And there she was, Sarah, standing. In my living room holding a key I didn't even know she had. "Hello, Catherine," she said calmly, as if this were a perfectly normal social visit. "Or should I call you Kathy like I used to?" "How did you get a key?" I demanded. Keeping my distance, "Marcus gave me one," she said, examining it casually. "Back when things were good between us, when he thought we had a future together, he wanted me to feel like part of the family. Isn't that sweet?" "You need to leave," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Right now, or I'm calling the police." "Go ahead," she said, settling onto my couch, my grandmother's antique couch that she had no right to touch. "Call them. I'll be gone before they get here, and then it will just be your word against mine that I was ever here. We have security cameras, Sarah. Rebecca," she corrected. "And yes, I know about the cameras. I helped Marcus pick them out. Remember when you two were having that discussion about home security, and he asked for my advice because I used to work in home alarm systems. Another lie, of course. But he believed me." She smiled that same sweet smile I had seen at dinner. "I know exactly where all the cameras are. Catherine and I made sure to stay out of their sight lines." I looked toward the hallway where I knew the main camera was positioned. She was right. She had come in at an angle that the camera wouldn't catch. "What do you want, Sarah?" I asked. "I want you to convince Marcus to take me back," she said simply. "I want you to tell him that you overreacted, that you were wrong about me, that he should give me another chance." "Are you insane? I'm not going to do that." "Yes, you are," she said, and her voice changed, became harder, colder. "Because if you don't, I'm going to make sure Marcus never trusts you again. I'm going to tell him things about you, about Tom, about your marriage, that will make him question everything he thought he knew about his perfect parents." "What are you talking about? We have nothing to hide." "Don't you?" She leaned forward. "What about that weekend in 2007, Catherine? What about the real reason Tom and I took that walk?" My heart started pounding. "Tom told me everything. You confessed your feelings. He rejected you. Nothing happened." "Is that what he told you?" She laughed. "And you believed him?" "Of course you did, because Tom is such a good man, such an honest man, except he's not. He's just better at lying than I am." "You're lying." "Am I?" She pulled out her phone and started scrolling. "Because I have text messages, Catherine, from 2007 from Tom's old phone number messages that are very, very inappropriate." She turned the phone toward me, and I saw what looked like text conversations, but I couldn't read them from where I was standing. "Those are fake," I said. "You fabricated them." "Maybe," she said, "or maybe they're real. Maybe Tom did have feelings for me. Maybe something did happen that weekend, and he's been lying to you about it for 15 years. How would you know what really happened? You weren't there. Marcus would never believe you." "Are you sure? Because I'm very convincing, Catherine. I convinced him to fall in love with me, didn't I? I convinced him I was someone I wasn't for 6 months, and he never suspected a thing. I can be very persuasive when I need to be." She stood up and walked toward me. I backed away until I hit the wall. "Here's what's going to happen," she said. "You're going to call Marcus right now and tell him you made a mistake, that I'm not really Sarah Mitchell, that you were confused, that you want him to be happy, and if being with me makes him happy, then you support it." "No." "Yes," she said, and she was so close now, I could smell her perfume, the same scent she had worn in college. "Because if you don't, I will destroy your family. I will tell Marcus that his father cheated on you with me. I will provide evidence, fake or not, and I will make sure he never trusts either of you again. And then when your marriage is destroyed, when Marcus hates you both, when your perfect little family is in ruins, I'll comfort him, I'll be there for him, and eventually he'll come back to me because I'm very patient, Catherine. I've been patient for 15 years. I can be patient a little longer." I don't know where the strength came from. Maybe it was years of suppressed anger, maybe it was maternal instinct, maybe it was just that I had finally reached my breaking point. But something in me snapped. "Get out of my house," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out right now. Or what? She challenged. You're an old woman, Catherine. What are you going to do? Fight me? No, I said. I'm going to show you what happens when you threaten my family. I pulled out my phone and hit record on the video function. Say all of that again. Sarah, say it while I'm recording. Say how you're going to fabricate evidence and manipulate my son, threaten to destroy my marriage. Go ahead, I'm waiting. Her face changed, went from confident to uncertain. You can't record me without my permission. This is my house in Pennsylvania, I said, and in this state I can record anyone who's in my home without their permission. It's called the one-party consent law. Look it up. That recording won't prove anything. But her voice had lost its confidence. Won't it? You just admitted to planning to fabricate evidence to blackmail me, to manipulating my son. You threatened to destroy my family, and I have it all on video. I stepped toward her now, and you know what else? I have, Sarah. I have doorbell camera footage from the neighbor across the street. The one you didn't know about. That shows you entering my house. You thought you were so clever, avoiding my cameras, but you didn't account for everyone else's cameras in the neighborhood. This was a bluff. I had no idea if the neighbors had caught her on camera, but she didn't know that. You're bluffing. But she was backing toward the door now. Try me, I said. Leave now and maybe I won't. Press additional charges for breaking and entering, for making terroristic threats, for violating the restraining order that's being processed as we speak, or stay and find out what happens when you push a mother too far. Sarah looked at me, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, I saw fear in her eyes. Real, genuine fear. This isn't over, Catherine. Yes, it is, I said. It's been over since the moment you walked through my door, pretending to be someone. You're not. You just didn't realize it yet. She left the key to my house on the coffee table and walked out. I immediately called 911. Then I called Tom. Then I called Marcus, and then I sat down on my couch and shook for 10 minutes straight because I had just confronted a mentally ill woman who had been stalking my family, and I had done it alone without knowing if she had a weapon, without knowing what she was really capable of. But I had done it. I had protected my family. The police arrived. Within minutes, they took my statement, took the video I had recorded, took the key Sarah had left behind. We'll pick her up for questioning. The officer told me, with this video and the other evidence you've compiled, she's looking at multiple felony charges. Sarah was arrested that evening. She tried to run. They found her at the train station with a bag full of cash, a fake passport with yet another identity, and a folder full of photos, of Marcus photos she had clearly been taking without his knowledge or consent. Some of them were from inside his apartment, which meant she had been breaking in there too, watching him even after he had broken off the engagement. The DA assigned to the case called it one of the most disturbing stalking cases she had ever seen. This woman has been living in a delusional fantasy for decades, she told me. And when that fantasy started to crumble, she became dangerous. You did the right thing by confronting her, by getting that recording. It might have saved your son's life. The trial was set for 3 months later. But before it could begin, Sarah's lawyer approached us with a plea deal. My client is willing to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for psychiatric treatment, instead of prison time. Jennifer Morrison. Our lawyer looked at me and Tom. It's your call. The DA says she'll agree to whatever you want. I thought about it carefully, thought about Sarah, the girl I had known in college, the friend I had loved like a sister. That Sarah was gone, had maybe never really existed in the first place. The woman who remained was sick, dangerous, and had caused irreparable harm to my family. No deal, I said. She goes to trial, and if she's convicted, she serves her full sentence. I want her in prison where she can't hurt anyone else. Tom agreed. Marcus agreed, and so Sarah Mitchell went to trial. The evidence against her was overwhelming: the stolen identity, the bankruptcy she had been running from the fake social media accounts. She had used to stalk Marcus, the manufactured meeting at the medical conference, the lies upon lies upon lies, and then there was her history, the first husband, the restraining order, the diagnosis of erotomania, that she had refused to treat, the pattern of obsessive behavior that had escalated over decades. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours, guilty on all counts: identity, theft, fraud, stalking, harassment, making terroristic threats, burglating, breaking and entering, and violation of a previous restraining order. The judge sentenced her to 15 years in prison. Ms. Mitchell, the judge said, you have shown a disturbing pattern of deception and manipulation that has caused significant harm to multiple people. You have refused treatment for your mental illness and have instead chosen to hurt others to satisfy your delusional fantasies. This court has no choice but to remove you from society until you are no longer a danger. Sarah didn't react, didn't cry, didn't protest. She just sat there staring at me with those eyes that I had once known so well, and I realized that I was staring at a stranger. I had never really known Sarah Mitchell at all. We went to see Sarah in jail one time before she was transferred to the state penitentiary, just once for closure. Tom Marcus and I sat across from her in the visiting room, separated by thick glass. Why did you really do this? Sarah, I asked through the phone. Was it really all because Tom rejected you 15 years ago? She looked at me for a long time, and then she said something that I will never forget. You had everything. Catherine, you always had everything. The perfect family, the perfect marriage, the perfect life. And I had nothing. I just wanted to know what it felt like to take something from you the way life took everything from me. So you tried to take my son. I tried to take your happiness, she corrected. The way you took mine just by existing, just by having what I wanted. I never tried to hurt you, Sarah. I said, I loved you like a sister. That's what made it worse, she said. You were so oblivious, so happy, you never even noticed how much I was suffering, how much I wanted what you had. You never had to fight for anything. It was all just handed to you, and I had to watch while I struggled and failed at everything. That's not true, Tom interjected. You made choices, Sarah. You chose to fixate on me. You chose to steal someone's identity. You chose to stalk our son. Those were your choices, not Catherine's. I loved you, Sarah said to Tom, ignoring me completely. I loved you for 20 years, and you threw it away for her. What did she have that I didn't? She was real, Tom said simply. Catherine was always herself. She never pretended to be someone she wasn't. She never manipulated or lied or stalked. You were never in love with me, Sarah. You were in love with an idea, a fantasy. And when reality didn't match that fantasy, you couldn't accept it. Marcus, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Did you ever love me, or was I just a consolation prize? Sarah turned to him, and for a moment I saw something that might have been genuine emotion flicker across her face. I wanted to love you, she said. I tried to love you. But every time I looked at you, I saw him. I saw your father, and I hated you a little bit for being his son, for having his DNA, for having the life that should have been mine if he had just chosen me instead of your mother. So no, Marcus said, you never loved me. I was just a tool for revenge. You were a second chance, she said, but yes, also revenge. I wanted your mother to know what it felt like to lose something precious, to have it taken away without explanation the way she took Tom from me. She didn't take anything from you, Marcus said, standing up. My father was never yours. You built this whole fantasy in your head, and when it didn't come true, you blamed everyone but yourself. And you know what the saddest part is. If you had just gotten help, if you had just accepted that not everyone is going to love you back, you could have had a real life, real relationships, real happiness. But instead you wasted decades obsessing over something you could never have. And now you're going to spend the next 15 years in prison with nothing but your delusions to keep you company. We left after that, Sarah calling out that she was sorry that she never meant to hurt anyone, but we all knew it was just another lie, another manipulation. She was incapable of genuine remorse, incapable of taking real responsibility for her actions. She would probably spend her entire prison sentence believing she was the victim, believing that somehow we had wronged her. And, honestly, that was the saddest part of all. Not that she had destroyed her life, but that she still couldn't see that she was the one who had destroyed it. Marcus is in therapy now, working through the betrayal and the manipulation. It's going to take time, but he's young and resilient, and he has a family who loves him. Tom and I are closer than we've been in years. Strange how a crisis can either destroy a marriage or cement it. Ours was cemented. Sarah's confession about her obsession with Tom could have driven a wedge between us, could have made me doubt my husband, doubt our 40 years together. But instead it made me realize how lucky I am to have a man who rejected temptation, who stayed faithful, who protected our family, even when it meant keeping painful secrets. As for me, I've learned a painful lesson. Trust can be a beautiful thing, but blind trust can be dangerous. I look at people differently now, wonder about their motivations, question their stories. Maybe that makes me cynical, but maybe it also makes me wiser. I'm more cautious now, more protective of my family. And I've learned that sometimes the people we think we know, the best are the ones we don't know at all. Sarah's trial made the news. Local woman arrested for stalking, son of former friend. The headlines read, "Our story became a cautionary tale, a reminder that obsession and untreated mental illness can lead to devastating consequences." I've had people reach out to me. Women who've had similar experiences with friends, who became obsessive with relatives, who couldn't let go of unrequited love. One woman told me her sister had been stalking her husband. For 10 years, another said her college roommate had stolen her identity and tried to take over her life. It's more common than people think, these obsessive relationships, these people who can't distinguish fantasy from reality, who believe that if they just try hard enough, if they just become the right person, they can make someone love them, but love doesn't work that way. You can't force it, manufacture it, or steal it. Real love is freely given, not coerced or manipulated, and Sarah never understood that. For all her intelligence, for all her planning and scheming, she never understood the fundamental truth that you cannot make someone love you by pretending to be someone else, because eventually the mask falls off and all that's left is the L6 months after Sarah went to prison. I received a letter from her. It had been opened and read by prison officials before being forwarded to me. I debated throwing it away unread, but curiosity got the better of me. "Dear Catherine," it began, "I know you probably don't want to hear from me, and I don't blame you. I've had a lot of time to think in here, a lot of time to reflect on what I did and why I did it. The prison psychiatrist says I have erotomania and borderline personality disorder, that I've probably had them my whole life but never got proper treatment. She says my obsession with Tom was a delusion, that I built an entire fantasy life in my head where he loved me back. And when reality didn't match that fantasy, I couldn't cope. I want you to know that I'm getting help now. Real help. I'm on medication. I'm in therapy. I'm finally facing the things I've been running from my whole life, and I'm starting to understand how sick I was, how warped my thinking had become. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. What I did to you, to Tom, to Marcus was unforgivable. But I want you to know that I'm sorry, truly, deeply. Sorry, not just sorry that I got caught, but sorry for the pain I caused, for the trust I violated, for the friendship I destroyed. We were friends once. Real friends. At least I think we were. Or maybe that was a delusion too. Maybe I was never capable of real friendship. Maybe I was always just looking for something to fill the emptiness inside me. I hope Marcus is okay. I hope he can move on from this, find someone who really loves him, someone who's honest and real. I hope he knows that none of this was his fault, that he did nothing wrong. I hope you and Tom are okay too, that your marriage survived this, that you can look back on our friendship and remember the good parts. If there were any good parts, the psychiatrist wants me to write letters to everyone I've hurt as part of my therapy. She says, I need to take accountability. For my actions, acknowledge the harm I've caused. So that's what this is. I guess accountability. I stole Rebecca Stone's identity. I stalked your son. I broke into your homes. I threatened you. I tried to destroy your family. I did all of these things. And I'm sorry. I will be in prison for a long time. Plenty of time to think about what I've done. Plenty of time to become a better person, if that's even possible. I don't expect you to write back. I don't expect anything from you anymore, except maybe that you'll forget about me, that you'll move on and be happy. I hope you're happy, Catherine, I really do. Because that's what I wanted all along. Not to destroy your happiness, but to have some of my own. I just went about it in the worst possible way. Yours truly, Sarah. I read the letter twice, then put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. I couldn't whether her remorse was genuine or just another manipulation. I would never know. And honestly, it didn't matter anymore. Sarah. Mitchell was part of my past, and I was determined to keep her there. Marcus started dating again about a year after the trial. He was cautious. At first, hyper-aware of red flags, constantly worried that he was missing something, but gradually, he learned to trust again, too. Open his heart to the possibility of love. He met a woman named Jennifer at a hospital fundraiser. She's a nurse, genuine, funny, with no hidden agenda, and most importantly, completely herself. From the beginning, they've been together for 8 months. Now, and I can see the difference in how Marcus looks at her. It's not the desperate, infatuated look he had with Sarah. It's calmer, steadier, more real. I think I'm going to ask her to marry me, Marcus told me last week. But I need to know that you approve, that you think she's good enough. I looked at my son, this beautiful man who had been through so much, and said, I think she's wonderful, honey, but more importantly, I think you're finally ready to marry someone who loves you for who you really are, not who they want you to be. What if I'm wrong again? He asked. What if I can't see the red flags? Then your father and I will, I said. That's what family is for. We protect each other, we watch out for each other, and we never let our guard down completely. Not because we're cynical, but because we're wise. When did you get so wise, Mom? He asked with a smile. When your best friend tried to steal my son, I replied. That'll wise you up real quick. Eleanor and Richard Mitchell reached out to me a few months ago. They wanted to apologize again, wanted to somehow make amends for what their daughter had done. You don't need to apologize. I told Eleanor, Sarah is an adult. Her choices are her own, not yours. But we should have seen the signs, Eleanor said. When she was younger, there were warning signs, obsessive behaviors, trouble maintaining friendships. But we just thought she was passionate, intense. We never imagined. You couldn't have known, I said. None of us. Do you hate her? Eleanor asked. For what she did to your family? I thought about it carefully. No? I said finally, I don't hate her. I pity her. She wasted her entire life chasing something that was never real, and now she's sitting in a prison cell with nothing but regrets. That's punishment enough. You're more forgiving than I would be, Eleanor said. It's not forgiveness, I corrected. It's acceptance, accepting that some people are too broken to fix, accepting that some friendships were never meant to last, accepting that the past is the past and all we can do is move forward. We talk occasionally. Now Eleanor and I sharing updates about our families, our lives. We'll never be close. The way Sarah and I once were, too much has happened for that, but we're civil friendly even. And sometimes that's enough. As for Sarah, I've heard through the prison grapevine that she's doing okay. She's compliant with her treatment, participating in therapy programs, teaching other inmates to read. Whether she's genuinely changed or just playing another role, I'll never know, and I've made peace with that. Tom and I are planning a trip to Italy next month, something we've talked about doing for years, but never got around to. Life's too short, Tom said when we booked the tickets. We need to stop putting things off, stop waiting for the perfect time. When did you get so philosophical? I teased. When I realized that holding on to old secrets almost cost me everything, he said. I should have told you about Sarah's confession 15 years ago. I should have trusted you with that information instead of trying to protect you. You were trying to do the right thing. I was being a coward, he said. I was afraid of how you'd react, afraid it would hurt you, but keeping that secret almost destroyed our family. I won't make that mistake again. Catherine, no more secrets between us ever? No more secrets, I agreed, and I meant it. We've been more honest with each other in the past year than we were in the previous 40, and our marriage is stronger. For it's strange how betrayal from the outside can strengthen bonds on the inside. I think about Sarah, sometimes wonder what she's thinking in her cell, whether she regrets what she did or still believes somehow she was justified. I wonder if she thinks about that first day we met at Boston University. 2 18-year-old girls, looking at a map trying to find their way. Want to be lost together? She had asked, and I had said yes. Never imagining that 43 years later we would still be lost, but in very different ways. She lost to delusion and obsession and mental illness, me lost in the complicated feelings of betrayed friendship, of mourning someone who's still alive, of reconciling the Sarah I thought I knew with the Sarah who actually existed. But I'm finding my way. Now we all are. Marcus with his new girlfriend. Tom with his renewed commitment to honesty. Me with my hard-won wisdom about trust and boundaries and the importance of questioning even the people we think we know best. The thing about being lost is that eventually you find your way forward. Maybe not back to where you were before. That's impossible. Once you've been lost, you can never truly return to the starting point, but forward to somewhere new, somewhere different. Somewhere that acknowledges the journey and the lessons learned along the way. The house feels different now. Lighter somehow, as if a weight has been lifted. We changed the locks, obviously, but we also redecorated, painted the walls, new colors, replaced the couch Sarah had sat on, bought new dishes, because I couldn't stand to use the ones she had eaten from. It wasn't about erasing her memory entirely. It was about reclaiming our space, marking it as ours and ours alone. I've made new friends too. Women from my book club, from my design firm, clients who became friends, over shared lunches and easy conversation. These friendships are different from what I had with Sarah. They're more surface level, less intense, but also more honest. There's no hidden obsession lurking beneath the smiles, no secret agenda, no ticking time bomb waiting to explode, and maybe that's okay. Maybe not. Every friendship needs to be soul deep. Maybe sometimes it's enough to have people who make you laugh, who show up when they say they will, who are exactly who they appear to be. I've also reconnected with old friends, people I lost touch with over the years, because I was so focused on Sarah, on maintaining that one intense friendship at the expense of all others. I always thought there was something off about her. One friend told me when I explained what had happened. She was so possessive of you, so jealous whenever you paid attention to anyone else. Why didn't you say anything? I asked. Would you have believed me? She replied, you loved her, you trusted her completely. If I had said she was jealous or manipulative, you would have thought I was the problem, not her. She was right. I wouldn't have believed it. I was blind to Sarah's faults, blind to the warning signs, blind to everything except my belief in our friendship. And that blindness almost cost me everything. But here's what I've learned about betrayal, about the kind of deep soul-crushing betrayal that Sarah inflicted. It doesn't break you. Not if you don't let it. Yes, it changes you, makes you more cautious, more aware, more likely to question, but it doesn't have to make you bitter or closed off or unable to trust. Again, it can make you stronger, wiser, more appreciative of the people who are genuinely in your corner. Tom, Marcus, my real friends, the ones who stood by me through all of this. They're my anchors, my proof that not everyone is hiding something, that real love and real friendship do exist. You just have to be willing to see them clearly, without the rose-colored glasses, without the desperation, to believe the best about everyone, without the naive assumption that if someone has been good to you in the past, they'll always be good to you. Sarah Mitchell taught me that lesson, and while I wish I hadn't had to learn it this way, I'm grateful for the wisdom it brought. I'm grateful that we caught her before the wedding, before Marcus legally bound himself to a woman who didn't exist. I'm grateful that we're all safe, that we're all together, that we survived. I'm grateful even for the pain. Because pain means you're alive, means you care, means you have something worth protecting. And my family, my real, honest, complicated, beautiful family, is worth protecting. So that's my story. The story of how my son brought home his new fiancée, and she turned out to be my best friend from college. Except she wasn't my best friend. She never was. She was a stranger wearing a familiar face, a woman consumed by envy and obsession, a cautionary tale about the danger of assumptions, about looking beneath the surface, about questioning everything. If you're watching this and you recognize yourself in any part of this story, if you're the one obsessing over someone who doesn't love you back, if you're the one creating fantasies in your head that don't match reality, if you're the one considering doing something drastic to win someone's love, please stop, please get help, because obsession isn't love, manipulation isn't love, stalking isn't love. Real love is honest, patient, respectful, real. Love doesn't destroy, it builds. And if you can't have that, if the person you want doesn't want you back, then the loving thing to do is let them go. Not because you don't care, but because you care enough to want them to be happy, even if that happiness doesn't include you. Sarah never learned that lesson, and it cost her everything. Her freedom, her family, her entire life. Don't let that be your story. Get help while you still can, before obsession becomes your prison, before fantasy becomes your reality, before you hurt people who don't deserve to be hurt. And if you're on the other side of this, if someone is obsessing over you or your family member, trust your instincts. Don't dismiss the red flags. Don't rationalize the strange behavior. Don't convince yourself you're overreacting. Because sometimes that gut feeling that something's wrong is the only warning you'll get before everything falls apart. Document everything. Tell people what's happening. Don't keep secrets to protect feelings or avoid drama, because those secrets can become weapons. Later, get legal help, get restraining orders, get security cameras, do whatever you need to do to protect yourself and your loved ones. Because people like Sarah, they don't stop. They don't give up. They don't take no for an answer unless they're forced to, unless there are consequences, unless someone finally says enough and means. I hope you never have to learn these lessons the way I did. I hope your friendships are genuine, your relationships honest, your trust well placed. But if you do find yourself in a situation like mine, remember, you're stronger than you think. You can survive betrayal. You can rebuild trust. You can move forward even when it feels impossible. Because I did. We did. And so can you. Did this story shock you as much as it shocked me living through it? Have you ever had someone from your past resurface in an unexpected way? Have you ever felt that something was off about a friend or family member's new partner, but couldn't quite put your finger on what it was? I want to hear your stories in the comments below. Your experiences might help someone else recognize the warning signs before it's too late. And if you found this video helpful or eye-opening, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories about betrayal, survival, and the strength of family. There's a whole playlist of similar stories on my channel that I think you'll find absolutely riveting. Click the video on your screen right now to watch the next one, about a woman who discovered her sister had been living a double life for 15 years. Trust me, you won't believe what happens. See you in the comments, and remember, always trust your instincts, always verify the truth, and always protect your family at all costs. Because sometimes the greatest danger comes from the people we trust the most. Stay safe out there, everyone.